All right, it is right at 12 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I am Dr. Stacy Wall. I'm the liaison to the Basic Sciences for the Health Sciences Library here at VCU, and this is the How To Talks by Postdocs series, where postdocs come and teach us how to do something. It's not your typical research seminar where they're going to present data and interpret it. There might be data, but this is really a chance for our postdocs to teach us how to do something related to their career, to their research, or to some other aspect of professional development. And today we have Dr. Arnethea Sutton. She's a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Health, Behavior, and Policy at the VCU School of Medicine and in the Massey Cancer Center Office of Health, Equity, and Disparities Research. She obtained her doctorate in health-related sciences with a focus in clinical laboratory sciences from VCU in 2017, and her master's in clinical lab sciences in 2006. Her research focuses on identifying factors such as biological, psychosocial, and healthcare-related factors that contribute to racial disparities that impact Black women at risk of hereditary breast cancer and Black breast cancer survivors. Her current research on racial disparities in treatment-related cardiotoxicity among breast cancer survivors is funded by K99R00 from the National Cancer Institute. Her goal is to develop and implement multi-level interventions to address racial disparities in breast cancer. That is a fantastic area of research, but today we're going to hear from Dr. Sutton about how she uses academic Twitter and leverages it for her career and professional development.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Stacy, and thank you all for joining this talk. I hope this is an exciting talk for you. It was really exciting for me to prepare it. So like Stacy said, we're gonna, the title of my talk is #academic Twitter, leveraging Twitter to build networks and for all things research. And so, Twitter is, as you will see as we go through the presentation, Twitter is a fun and exciting place. Once you start to learn the ropes, and hopefully as we go through this presentation and definitely by the end, you feel equipped to, if not start your Twitter, like engage in your own Twitter process a little more. So a quick disclaimer, I am not a Twitter expert. I have not had training in social media per se. I consider my expertise cancer disparities, but over the past at least year and a half or more, I think I've learned some things on Twitter through my own experiences and from others that I feel will be useful for you all today. So utilize your chat function. I have two questions for you. One is for you to tell me what you feel is the most frequently used social media platform in the United States. Please don't Google it. And the other is which is most popular amongst US adults between Twitter or TikTok. And so I'm gonna give you a second to respond. I see Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Okay, a lot of, okay, so people think Twitter versus TikTok. Oh, TikTok is the most frequently used. Okay, cool, Facebook. Yeah, so these are some of the responses I expected. And so here is a chart from Pew Research for you. So this is among Americans who say, you can see the very top, which I did not guess that at all either. YouTube is the most widely used platform amongst US adults. And because YouTube is considered social media, which most people don't consider it as such, but you'll see why in just a second. And then as you can see, Twitter is actually at this point used more widely than TikTok. I think we definitely see a growing trend in TikTok users though, but right now it is Twitter. So, during a seminar, this is not like your normal formal scientific seminar, so I'm just going to make it very basic. We're going to talk about the what's of social media and Twitter, why it's even important, because, most of us are scientists, so we need a rationale of some sense to even have buy-in. And then how? So how do you effectively utilize Twitter for all things academia and all things research? So I'm going to start with the history of social media because I thought this was quite interesting. And so for all of you like real science nerdy people like myself, you're like, okay, this is your background. So we're writing like a paper or something. This will be your background section. This is the part that's going to set the foundation for why we're even talking about any of this stuff today. So what is social media? I think it's important to understand exactly how it is defined. So Merriam-Webster defines it as a form of electronic communication, such as websites for social networking and microblogging, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. And they have there such as video. So now you see why YouTube is considered a social media platform, because you can communicate with others, but it's a way to share videos. Okay, so a little bit about social media. So I started doing some Googling to see what was out there. And I'm not going to tell you all if I remember this first one or not, but AOL Instant Messaging came around in 1997. That was considered one of the first forms of social media. And soon after that came Black Planet. You can see LinkedIn is up here, which is still around today. That was 2002. And then we go on further to some of the ones that are more recognizable now. And so you see that Facebook has 2 years there, because in 2004, when it first started, it was only open to individuals who had a .edu or were affiliated with the university. And then in 2006, it was open to anyone over the age of 13. Definitely YouTube. And then some of the ones you see more now, Instagram, which was 2010, and then TikTok, which was about 2016. And so we're going to focus solely today on my favorite social media platform, which is Twitter. So Twitter came around July 15, 2006. And it actually started at the South, it really launched at the South by Southwest conference, which is this huge media conference. And what the co-founders of Twitter did, where they sent out text messages and emails to individuals who attended this conference, telling them to engage in Twitter and use this hashtag. And that's how it kind of exploded just at that conference. Currently, there are 330 million active monthly users of Twitter. Twitter was interesting in that initially when it was started, and this was much to everyone's chagrin, it was only 140 characters limit. So it was hard to put information out there because you got a very abbreviated amount of space. Now Twitter has opened it up and made it easier for those of us who like to share a lot and talk a lot. They gave us 280 characters, and they also gave us the ability to use threads. So now we can say a lot more in a little snapshot. Twitter is considered the place for breaking news. So it is the most preferred social network for news consumption. And if you just go around and ask people where they get their news from, I know it's the same for me. Sometimes I'll look at the newspaper websites, but most of the news that I get is from Twitter. So just to give you a little bit about Twitter demographics, because if you haven't joined it yet, if you're like me, before I go anywhere or do something, I need to know who's going to be there. So by age group, you can see that our Twitter users, about 38.5% of them are between the ages of 25 to 34. If you look above that green bar, you can see that it actually trends older versus younger. And so we see that the larger share beyond that are individuals who are between the ages of 35 and up. There is a growing trend in Twitter amongst younger individuals, but those individuals below that tend to stick to now more so the Instagram and TikTok and other platforms. But this is the large share of who's on Twitter. Okay, so Pew Research also did some investigation into the percentage of US adults in each demographic who say they've ever used Twitter. So you can see in the US, about 23% of people have used it, probably close to equal distribution of men and women. You can see about 22% of white US adults use Twitter, 29% of Black, and then 23% of Hispanic. Here's the breakdown of household income. And you can see the majority of Twitter users tend to be over $75,000 a year. And then lastly, I thought this was pretty interesting, just geographical breakdown. And so you see a majority of Twitter users were live in urban areas at 27%, suburban 23%, and then rural 18%. So the why, if you're like me, you're okay, that's great, but why? Why should I even consider logging on, or why should I engage in my Twitter more? And so believe it or not, there are investigators who investigate social media and study social media and patterns of social media use. And this was an article that I came across that was published in 2020 that looked at six different journals, and across 2 different disciplines. And they tracked the citation rates of journal articles that were tweeted. So they looked at these journals, and if they tweeted the article that was published, they looked to see what the citation rate was. This was amongst 294 articles, and the primary finding that these investigators report that was that article citations were positively correlated with tweets about the article. So that's simple. The more tweets you saw about the article, the more you saw that that article was cited. Another study that just recently came out, so this was through, it's the Thoracic Surgery Social Media Network. They did this really interesting like randomized trial where they did what they call a randomized social media trial. And so they had a total of 112 articles. They did 56 of those articles, they pushed through their Twitter platform. And so they would tweet the information about the article, and then individuals that were part of their network would also tweet and share it. And then they had the other group that was randomized to the non-tweeted group. And so those articles, you know, the journals would put them out any way that they typically do, but they were not tweeted. And so this was the finding of those. So if you look at the first one, this is a change in citation. So this is from baseline to a year after. So they tweeted them and then they looked a year after. And you can see that amongst those that were a part of this randomized trial, those articles that were tweeted had significantly higher number of change in citations than those that were not. Other metrics that they looked at the altmetric score. And so you see there was a significant difference between articles that were tweeted and those that were not. And then they also look at the altmetric percentile relative to the actual journal and the age of the article. And still you see that the articles that were tweeted had a higher altmetric percentile than those that were not. I like this graphic, it's really plain and simple. It just lets you know there that if Twitter is an effective way to get your work out there. And aside from people just knowing about it, people are more likely to cite your article, which is very important, than if you did not tweet it. So that's your rationale. And there are a few more articles out there about Twitter and citations, so you could take a look, but those were the two that I've known about over the last year and a half that I thought would be useful to present to you. So I know that there are some people up here that are already on Twitter, but I know there are some that are not, and they're probably like afraid to even go about it. So we're going to do a little bit of talking about how you even start on Twitter. So when you go to the website, you're going to be asked to join. They make it pretty easy because if you already have a Google account or an Apple account, you can sign up that way. But if not, you can sign up the old school way, which is what I have, is just sign up through my email or a phone number. All right, so the basics. So this stuff might be considered like a no-brainer, but some people actually have issues with some of this. So creating a username or a handle, and this is what's considered your @ When you go to sign on to Twitter, they might try to assign you an @ So you might be like, oh, this is what I want my handle to be. And they're like, we're sorry, this one's already taken. What about this? You're going to want to avoid those multiple numbers that trail at the end of your handle. And so here's an example of my Twitter handle with those trailing numbers. Typically that is associated with like a bot account. When people typically see it, they're leery of it. And so I would suggest that you just avoid a whole bunch of numbers after your name and just try to keep it really simple. You should consider using your full name with or without credentials, or a name that describes your work. And so as you can see, I said, this is my Twitter handle. It's actually a nickname and my middle name. I've had Twitter since before I was in academia, and I just refused to change it. So that's what it's going to be for now. Okay, so aside from your handle, you also have to have your name up there, and your name could be whatever you want it to be. Because we're talking about ways to leverage it for academia and for research, I would highly suggest you consider your full name. Also, this makes it easier for people to find you. So if you just say, hey, my name is Arnethea Sutton, I'm on Twitter, someone can go on Twitter, just type in Sutton or Arnethea, and I could come up versus trying to give them my handle. I also think this is a great place for you to add your credentials, because as you can see, you're going to start to network on Twitter, and people want to see, what type of degrees you have, what you've studied. So definitely consider doing that. The last major basic is your profile picture and your banner picture. So consider a professional headshot. A lot of individuals use, if they're a part of a department that provides those, they'll use department headshot pictures. We're definitely in the age of photography now. So I have colleagues and friends who take professional headshots every season, so you can change them. Another good use of the picture or the banner picture are lab logos. So if you have your own lab and you have a logo, that is great for branding purposes for you to use it there. And then I've also seen other investigators use like quotes or different types of artwork. So I'm gonna give you some examples. And just know I'm going to use beyond just my own example, because I'm not trying to act like mine is like the end all be all. So my picture here is not a professional headshot. I was in my office one day and I thought, I'm kind of feeling myself, I'm gonna take this picture, and that's been my Twitter picture for a little while. I have my full name and I have my credentials at the end of it. And like I told you, I also have my my old Twitter handle that is going to be for a while. My banner picture, Dr. Jill Biden came to VCU Massey Cancer Center earlier this year, and I was fortunate enough to be selected to speak to her about my work. Found this picture when the VCU News, and I took it immediately and put it as my banner picture. When we get closer to the end of this presentation, I'll tell you why it's important to curate what your pictures are going to be and how it can come in handy. Okay, so then this is one that I also pulled. So this is Dr. Johnson, and I like her hers because she's one of those of my colleagues that does professional headshots all the time. And so she did one of these headshots a little while ago. Her banner is her proclamation. So she believes Black Lives Matter. And so that's what she has unapologetically as her banner picture. You can also see that for her name, she has her full name and her credentials. And then I like her Twitter handle because this gets back at the type of work that she does. So her Twitter handle is OcScienceBay, and that's because Kalia is an occupational scientist. And so I kind of like the way she did that there. This is one of my friend and colleagues, Dr. Autumn Lanoy, and I like Autumn's page because Autumn uses her department headshot. Like I said, that's a way to make good use of that. She has a beautiful photograph as her banner picture. She has her first and last name and her credentials for her name, but she also uses her first and last name as her Twitter handle. It's important to remember too, which Twitter gave us some flexibility now. It didn't used to be this way. So you can change your name and you can change your Twitter handle whenever you want to. It didn't used to be that way. You used to have to stick to what you have, but now you can make changes. So don't feel locked in. The one thing I will say though, is people start to learn you by your Twitter handle. And so making a lot of changes can make things a little confusing. Also, an interesting note with that, recently a person on Twitter just defended their dissertation, and they posted a page from their printed dissertation where they thanked individuals on Twitter for their help along the journey, and they used their Twitter handles. And I saw one of the people in there said, "Oh no, that's me in there, but that's not my Twitter handle anymore." And so that person wanted to make sure people knew who it was. So, you know, I'm more of a proponent of sticking with what you have. People get to know you by that after a while. Okay, your bio. So I think this is one of the most important features of your profile. And actually, when people start Twitter, sometimes people just forego it. They're like, "Oh, I have a picture there, that's fine." But your bio is who you are. And so if people are checking out your profile, instead of just scrolling through your tweets to try to get an idea of who you are, they can get a quick snapshot through your bio. So it's a short description of yourself. They only give you 160 characters. And so this is your opportunity to say, what do you want people to know about you? Some good things to consider with your bio is using hashtags and @. And so when you use those, they allow people to find you easiest. So I have here on the left mine, and we'll talk about my bio, like what my hashtag use is. But let's say, for instance, like we're all at VCU and you decide to put @VCU in your bio. If someone is searching VCU on Twitter and they go to people, anybody that has @VCU in their bio is going to come up. So it's like being really strategic to do ways for people to find you. Lastly, I have the pinned tweet. So when you're tweeting, if there's something that's super important that you want people to see front and center when they come to your page, pin it. So you can see here, and this was actually last week, I had the how-to talk pinned to my page. So that was the first thing you saw when you came to my page. I just changed it this morning. I'll show you what I put up there now. But that way people, if they were interested in this talk, they can go ahead and register, and that was front and center on my page. So my bio here, so I have a mixture of personal and professional information. Definitely that I'm a mom, you know, I'm a believer, and I do breast cancer disparities research. I hashtag cardio-oncology because that's becoming a little bit more common now to see that. That way, if anybody searches cardio-oncology, I will be someone that shows up. I'm letting you know that I got a little money, so I have K99R00, where I am at VCU, and then some more information about myself. Last thing up there you see is that views are my own. So this is actually more I tend to see more people do this now, probably within the last 2 years, especially if you're going to affiliate yourself loosely with the university or another institution. You want to make sure that people know that whatever you're putting on your page and your content is absolutely your own, and not definitively the views of that institution. So you'll start to see, as I show you some examples, that most people use that. Your location is up there. Twitter also gives you an opportunity to share your website. So if you have a lab website, a personal website, I don't have either, but I do have LinkedIn. I use that so people can find out more information about me. This is Dr. Heather Brand. So I got her permission to use hers. As you can see, she has a professional headshot, and then she does HPV work. So she has that as her banner picture. The first thing she has on her bio is opinion and tweets are mine. Like I said, you're going to see that consistently. She makes a really good use of hashtags for topics in her bio, so that if anyone searches any of those hashtags from science to MSci to HPV, her name will be one of the top names to come up. And then she also gives her location. She has her own website, and so she puts her website there so that if you want to know more information about her or her work, you can click on that. I also like Dr. Frederick Ingram's page. I love his banner picture. He had an opportunity to do a TED Talk. So he did his own quote on his banner picture. His bio, he's a disruptor and assistant professor. He also uses hashtags there. You can see the next thing he has is my tweets are my opinions solely. And so he gives you a little bit more about who he is. He also, for his website though, he uses his profile that is affiliated with his institution. And so I think that's a good way to boost that as well. So your Twitter content. So you've already made your bio. You are very thoughtful about that because you realize now how important that is. So now it's about your content. And I honestly feel that this first bullet point could be a whole nother talk on its own, because it's that age old like debate whether or not personal and or professional Twitter. And honestly, this is a matter of personal preference. I think that everyone that gets on Twitter, any kind of social media, you need to ask yourself, why am I here? So why am I on Twitter? I have my personal choice here. My personal choice is a mixture of personal and professional, and this is the reason why. I think sometimes we get so caught up if we're like, I'm going to go on Twitter, I want to push my work, and some people just seem like a monolith. None of us are just one. We're not just scientists. We're not just researchers. We're not just faculty. There are a lot more things about yourself. So like, I might be a scientist, but I'm also a mom. I'm also a daughter and a sister. You know, I like certain types of music. I listen to podcasts a lot. I have a dog. And so there are other things about myself that I think are important to share, particularly as you engaging individuals who are in the same, like maybe other junior individuals like myself, or people who are coming up. I think it's important for people to say, oh yeah, you know, they're not just sitting at home writing all day and that's all they do. They actually have a life. And so that's why I choose to kind of blend personal and professional. Some people say it's an art to it, but again, this is your own content. So you have to ask yourself, go back and ask yourself that question. One thing I want to say is topics that you may want to approach with caution. And so one example is politics. During 2020, Twitter almost became political Twitter, especially during the any kind of debates or during the actual election itself. And so you have to decide whether or not you are okay with people knowing where you stand on certain political, stand with regard to politics or not. Others that I say approach with caution, conversation about race, and then other what I consider controversial topics. Now, I don't consider race or politics necessarily controversial, especially since I'm a disparities and equity researcher. It comes with the territory. Sometimes I take a minute and think about things before I post them. And one such example was last week. So an amazing article came out in Stat News last week about, and it says here, how white scholars are colonizing research on health disparities. And this is something that me and some of my colleagues and friends talk about a lot. And, you know, they use this wonderful term called health equity tourists, of people who are here because it's hot right now and there's funding, but eventually they'll just be gone and move on to something else. And so I did have a lot to say about this, and I tweeted about it. One of the great things about this was, one, I gained probably about 40 to 50 followers in one day over retweeting this and talking about it. And then I also got other kinds of engagement of people asking if I wanted to consider maybe talking to the news media about it, which scares the living daylights out of me. But I thought it was important to kind of get this dialogue going. So I already showed you the data on this, and so I don't understand why you would need any further rationale to understand this. But on Twitter, you can absolutely share your publications. It's the place to do it. If you ever scroll through Twitter, you might see this hashtag new pub alert with these little sirens up there. And as soon as I see it, I'm like, oh, what is it? Let me click on it and see what people are publishing. So on Twitter, it provides you opportunities to position yourself as a leader or expert in your field. And so we know that you do that, you know, through your publications and other forms of engagement. definitely by going to conferences and speaking on panels, et cetera. But Twitter is also a place now where people look for experts in the field. And so as you're publishing, consider putting your work out there. So it's like, oh, I've seen that person talk about breast cancer before. Okay, and now they're talking about it again. So it's like when someone thinks breast cancer, they're going to start to think about you for that. It provides opportunities for discussions about your work. And so this could be good or bad. You put your work out there on Twitter, generally people will read it or they'll click on it, they're sharing the excitement with you that you published. And sometimes, depending on how provocative the topic may be, there may be discourse on Twitter about your work. I've seen, people talking about like applauding articles and talking about how great they are. I've also seen the other side where people are like bashing it or bashing certain terminology that's been used in it. I do not bash anyone's work on Twitter because I do not want anybody coming for me either. But you have to remember that if you put it out there, you're putting your work out there to be shared. And so you may get some, feedback, positive or negative about your work. It provides opportunities for future collaboration. So once people see the type of work you're doing, the methodologies, the content, then they might hit you up asking if you'd be willing to be a collaborator with them on grants or other publications. And then my favorite for Twitter is it provides opportunities for you to expand your reach beyond the ivory tower. We're in academia, we share amongst each other, but there absolutely needs to get our work beyond those walls. And Twitter is the place for that to happen. So this was an email I got a little while ago of a person who reached out to me asking me for a preprint of an article that they saw pushed on social media about Instagram and triple negative breast cancer, and it was behind a paywall. And so this gave me an opportunity to give that person access to that paper. Similarly, I tweeted about a med student that I had an opportunity to mentor. He got his first author pub out. And so I put a snapshot of the article in the DOI. And I had one of my colleagues in the breast cancer space, she sent a reply to that and was like, hey, can you send me a copy? I'd love to read this. So this again gave me an opportunity to get beyond individuals that have access to articles and give them access to the work. And that is really important for us, regardless of the type of work you do. It's important that people outside of academia, outside of your space, understand and can see the type of work that you're doing. All right, so new publications are also a great opportunity for PR. So institutions, and especially VCU, I see it all the time. So many institutions will share your publications. Now, they might not be as quick to find them. So the example I gave here, Dr. Jose Trevino, he published in JAMA Surgery. So of course they were all on top of the JAMAs. But if you tweet that you've had a publication, there's a chance that maybe your department will get a hold of it and then VCU will get a hold of it. And so this, again, just an opportunity to put yourself out there. It's best that you have Twitter though, because let's say VCU Massey or VCU gets a hold of a publication that was a major publication, they want to talk about it. All they really can do is put your name up there and then maybe people will go and look you up. But if they have your Twitter handle and you're on Twitter, then people will click right on you and they're more likely to follow you. And that's a good way, like I say, to increase your following. So journals also will promote your work. I have seen more now when you're submitting journals, when you're submitting publications to journals, they will give you an opportunity to say, hey, if this is published, is there a Twitter handle you want us to add or tag when we're pushing out this paper? So you can put your Twitter handle. A journal that I just submitted to last week actually asked me, hey, can you provide us 280 characters of what you would like to say? If this is published, we'll go ahead and push it out through our platform. So most of us, we don't have as many followers as some of these journals. And so this is a good example here of my friend and colleague, Dr. Hines, who published about young Black women and hypertension. JGIM tweeted the publication. So everyone that's following JGIM got to see that. They also not only added Dr. Hines, but they also added VCU Health and then Hopkins, where some of her collaborators are. And as a result, then she retweeted it. And then that means her followers were able to see it. So this is, again, like a way now journals are starting to get with it. They're like, okay, this helps with citation, so we're going to help you get that out there. It's not that useful if you don't have Twitter yourself. So this should be like another rationale or reason for you to consider joining Twitter. And then this one I like. So Twitter is a good place to be creative. So, some of us are more creative than others. I'm not the most creative person, but I decided one day, I was like, I want to try something different. Generally, when you see the new pub alert, someone might just put the link of their article up there. I saw last year people starting to use better infographics. So they did some nice little pictures of what was in their article. Sometimes they just show us the figures or tables so that we can quickly take a snapshot look at the data that are presented. In the lab that I work for, we had this platform called Doodly, Doodly. And actually I learned about it first from my church because my church was using it for announcements. And so I was like, oh man, I wonder if we can use this somehow in the work that we're doing. For last year in cancer biomarkers and prevention, I thought it was a really good paper. And I was like, I want to figure out a way to put this out there. So I used Doodly to do it was about 2 minutes or so of the snapshot of our paper. Cause I'm like, people like quick content on Twitter. So I'm like, people should be able to sit and listen to a quick video for 2 minutes. So I have a snapshot over here so you all can see what it was like.
We are so excited to present our work on race and patient-reported symptoms and adherence to adjuvant endocrine therapy, a report from the Women's Hormonal Initiation and Persistence Study that was recently accepted in Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers, and Prevention. Adjuvant endocrine therapy, or AET, improves outcomes in women with hormone receptor positive breast cancer. Suboptimal AET adherence is common, but data are lacking about AET symptoms and adherence in racial ethnic minorities. Therefore, we evaluated adherence by race and the relationship between AET symptoms and adherence. The WIP study included,
So that is a snapshot of that. So we used Doodly and we presented what our study was, what the findings were within 2 minutes. As a result of that, we got, a lot of people engaged in that tweet. I got some like DMs and some emails about what platform we use, how we did it. And I'm like, this is the reason for doing this. So I'm hoping that like more people try to find more creative ways for us to like learn about their papers versus just having to take a look at the abstract. Another reason I love Twitter, if you're out there looking for a job. So this is the how to talk for postdocs. So I'm assuming that most of us either now or a very near future will be looking for jobs. When you go on Twitter, the first thing I suggest is to follow your professional organization. So many organizations, like the one I have listed here, they will push out information about jobs. Now, this one is the American Society for Preventive Oncology, and they have special interest groups. This is the Disparity Special Interest Group. So the person that runs this account is pretty cool because they will tweet out content about what new jobs are out there pretty much as they're happening. And that happens to be me. So I run that account. And so I try to be really cognizant and like on top of any kind of disparities related positions that are out there. And I push them out through the social media platform. If you also follow your schools or departments of interest, they may have something for you too. So this was Harvard Epi. About a week or so ago, they pushed out this tweet because they have a new T32 program and they're looking for candidates for their postdocs. And they also gave you the link to how you apply. One reason I do like the way they tweeted this because they told you who it was led by, and all of those individuals have Twitter. So if you're considering applying, or if maybe if you want to engage them, if appropriate, about the position, you can follow them and do so on Twitter. Lastly, the job market search can be passive, so you have to be like very active and intentional about it. So I like this tweet that Deshauna put out there. Last year during COVID, there was this big thing, this big blow up about like that there are Black scientists in every field. And so everyone ended up having a week. And so last week was Black and Mental Health Week. And at the beginning of every week, they do a roll call. So Deshauna was a part of the roll call. And so she retweeted the Black and Mental Health roll call tweet. And she introduced herself, told who she was, and she's at Pitt. And then the last sentence is, by the way, I'm on the job market this year, so snatch me up. And as a result of that, she's on the roll call. So Black and Mental Health will retweet and like her tweet. Other people who see it will also retweet it. And so that kind of puts her out there so that maybe if some investigators or other individuals are looking for a postdoc or a researcher with her expertise, they might engage her. So that was actually a smart thing for her to do to let people know she's on the market. I want to take a moment to talk quickly about community engaged research. So I think typically when we think about community engaged research or community-based participatory research, we think about like our greater community around us, so the people that we work with, play with, go to church with, et cetera. But I challenge you to look at Twitter as a place to do all things community engaged or community-based participatory. Twitter is a community in and of itself. And I learned last year that this was a great opportunity for me to leverage Twitter for another community. The picture here is of some individuals that I've worked with over the past maybe year and a half now. All of the individuals in this picture are advocates for breast cancer awareness. Some of them are breast cancer survivors or individuals currently living with breast cancer. And, we have dialogues every so often. We get on Zoom and talk about certain topics. I also tap some of these individuals as I'm working on research projects. So when I got my K, I had a interview guide that I developed by myself, mistake number one. So I've developed the interview guide and I was about to send it to the IRB and I was like, you know what, let me go back. So I tapped a few of these individuals. I said, hey, do you guys mind reviewing a guide for me? And they were like, sure. So I sent it to them, gave them a week. We got on Zoom and they ripped it to shreds and it's exactly what I needed. So they're like, oh no, if you're talking to cancer survivors, but what if they're currently living with cancer, consider this term. And you use the term providers, but maybe you should use this term. And so that was the kind of help that I needed. And I think all of us as researchers should consider like, how can I leverage Twitter to do this? The interesting thing is I've never met any of these individuals in person, but we always engage each other's work on Twitter. They'll retweet me, I'll retweet them. And then they know that we have this kind of relationship now that we can all, work with each other with anything that we're doing. So if that's the type of work that you're doing or you'd like to do it, consider Twitter for that place. Also, this is a little bit different than what I've discussed, but I think it's just as important. So you also can leverage social media to do research. So we talked about how to push your research out there, but what if you're interested in social media as a platform for research? Massey Cancer Center has a health communication and digital innovation shared resource. If you're doing cancer-related work and you're interested in social media, they have expertise within that shared resource. One is Dr. Sunny Kim. So she has expertise in social media. Dr. Janine Guidry is on the Monroe Park campus. She does a lot with media and social media. And then Dr. Carrie Miller is on the medical campus. She also has expertise in social media. And so these individuals, if you're interested in how to utilize social media to actually do research, whether you're interested in focus groups, they are well-versed in how to recruit, but just beyond that, like how you can use it to understand certain topics or to understand what's being discussed maybe on social media within your field. A good example was that I got to work with 2 of the 3 of those individuals on a paper that looked at Instagram, and they were trying to look to understand, like, how do individuals use this hashtag of triple negative breast cancer on social media? And so we use a theoretical approach to do some content analysis, and we went through 501 posts. And like I said, my expertise is breast cancer, and so I was able to lend the lens with that regard. But working with Drs. Miller and Guidry, they were the ones who were able to help Dr. Henderson go through Instagram and learn how to utilize Instagram in order to answer this research question. So very novel. It was a very new space for me, but it was very helpful to think about in order for me to think about some of my future work. So one of the things is, that can be a little disheartening. So you start out on Twitter and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I have 3 followers. Oh, I have 5 followers. Oh, 30. So increasing your following is one of those things you're just like, you can almost become obsessed with. So here are some tips, some of which I got from Twitter and some I added on my own, of how you can increase your following once you're there. So one, you actually have to follow people. So I implore you, when we finish this, get on Twitter and find me and follow me. I will follow you back. And then look through my list of followers and people you're going to recognize, people that people around VCU, people that are in certain fields like cancer, and follow them. Some people have it where their Twitter will alert them when people follow them. And when that happens, they're more prone to follow you back. So like I said, just get out there and start following people. You got to tweet frequently. And so I know frequently is subjective, but the more people see you tweet, the more likely they are to follow you and engage you. And so just get out there and try to tweet once, twice, or more a day so that people can see that you're actually engaged in the platform. Also, you need to engage other tweets. So it's not just enough to put your own content out there. This is social media. This is interaction. So reply to other people's tweets, retweet them, quote tweet them, like them. That way they can see that you're engaging, and then people are more likely to return the favor. Post visual content. So no, this is not Instagram. This is not TikTok, but you can post pictures and videos like I just showed you on Twitter. And so post those pictures and those videos. People love them. Like I love seeing people's dogs and their cats and their kids and other things that they're doing. I love to also see people post like a picture of their laptop and they're working in the wee hours in the morning. I mean, all of it's relevant to me. So post your pictures and your videos. Promote your ad. So your handle now is a part of who you are. Whenever you're doing any kind of presentations, if you have a website, any type of engagement, put your Twitter handle up there so that people, if they're up there, they can go right to Twitter. So when I'm at conferences, I always have my phone in hand Typically, I am tweeting things about the conference and using the conference hashtag. But as I'm seeing people present, if they put like what their handle is on their slide, I immediately go to it and follow them right away. And so that's a good way for you to promote yourself and to get more, increase your following. Now, the ones under the bullet, the dotted area. So attend or create a Twitter space. Twitter space is new. I'll tell you about that. Use trending and relevant hashtags and asking questions. So Twitter spaces, brand new. I think they kind of got it from Clubhouse. So it's a similar kind of thing. As a person who's on Twitter, you can host any kind of space you want to. You start the space and you just start talking and hope people join you. It can be about any topic you want. As people are joining your space, you control it. So if you don't want people to talk, you never give them access to. If people want to talk, they have to request it and then you have to grant them access. Now, quickly, I'm gonna let you hear, this was a conversation that happened between some HEMONC fellows where they were discussing being on the job market. I have a picture over it because I didn't get any of their permission to show them as I did with other people, but this just gives you an idea of like what it's like.
Because you want to be in the city, partying it up. I mean, you really know that program, they have something to contribute, the community they serve is the community you want to work with. There's something in that program that it's going to take you to the next level. And people want to feel like everybody feels like the people who interview you are the people who are already kind of drinking the Kool-Aid. Like they love the program they're in, they love the institution they're in. So they want.
So that was probably useful for individuals who are like HEMONC fellows and they're about to get in the market. And so these people are giving them tips and tricks and things to consider once they do so. Frequently use hashtags. So once you get on Twitter, use hashtags. That's how people can find your tweet. So, you know, we have academic Twitter here. I like academic chatter because there is actually an academic chatter page. So if you hashtag or academic chatter, they're more likely to see it and they will retweet it or like it so that other people that follow them can see it. There are a host of others here that you can consider. And like, these are just a few that I tend to use or typically see on Twitter. Also, if you go to some of your journal articles that you tend to read or are published with, they will also have certain hashtags within their bios. So considering using some of those, because that means that more than likely people in your field also use those hashtags. So you're more likely to have visibility amongst your colleagues. And then asking questions on Twitter, I think is really fun. So you can use Twitter to ask questions. So this was Dr. Falk. She asked a question the other week. She'd written this manuscript, it was 1,000 words over. And then she's like, please help me, like, give me some tips for how to cut. And people started just replying to her and gave her ideas and suggestions, even websites of places they use in order to help them learn how to cut words from their manuscript. Similarly, I did a podcast earlier this year, and you know, like me, if you're a postdoc, you're adding everything to your CV. And I was like, how do I add this to my CV? So I went to Twitter and asked the question, and I got a host of responses of what different people do or what like headings do they use for this type of media or this type of engagement. As a result of that tweet, that was really neat. So it had over 95,000 impressions. And so that means that that's how many times it was on someone's timeline or someone saw it through a search. Over 313 people actually clicked on my profile as a result. And I do not recall exactly how many people I got, how many new followers I got, but I do remember that I got new followers as a result of that tweet. So that's why it's kind of fun sometimes to ask questions and try to get engagement that way. And then it definitely goes down in the DMs. So quickly, I'm gonna show you that through my DMs, like you wanna keep your DMs open. It can get kind of scary because sometimes you get some crazy, cringy content, but people, if they see you on Twitter, they're more likely to go through your DM to send you a message than they are to email you. So here I got one from a young lady who was doing a podcast and she wanted to know if I'd be interested in doing a podcast. So that was my first one. That was fun. I got invited to be a part of a review, be a reviewer for a special section of the Journal of Cancer Survivorship. And I got that through Twitter. I got this one earlier this year in order to be a part of the Black News Channel was doing a special on breast cancer disparities in the Black community. And they reached out to me on Twitter. What's interesting about this one is when I actually met with her to record, the first thing she said to me was, I've heard about you. I went through your Twitter. I saw your banner picture and saw the picture with you and Dr. Jill Biden. And so then I really knew. And that's why I said in the beginning, it's important to be very specific about or particular about what you want to add. And this was a snap. This actually just came out today. So if you go to my page today, this is actually what's pinned to the top of my page is the segment they did about breast cancer. And then lastly, although this one makes me cringe every time they spell my name wrong, this was because they were like, oh, we've seen the work that you do and we're going to possibly have a position open. We'd love to tell you about it and talk to you. And so the DMs are a great place for you to get jobs and other opportunities, but you have to engage in Twitter first and foremost. And so lastly, I'm gonna end with some limitations because you're scientists and you're like, nope, there has to be some bad things with this. So go ahead and tell us what they are. And so I will tell you that one thing I've learned about Twitter, last year, at the beginning of 2020, I had about 300 followers. And I decided to make a goal for myself. Once COVID hit, I said, you know what, by the end of the year, I'm gonna have 1,000 followers. That's my goal. I don't even think, sadly enough, I made a publication goal last year. So this is why I tell you, be very careful. So I had this goal of 1,000 followers. I was active on Twitter. I had one laptop where I worked all day. The other one was on Twitter all day. I took constant breaks, retweeted and talked to people all day. And I just watched my followers go up. I checked my analytics constantly to see how much you're tweeting, like make sure you're tweeting a lot. But that pulled me away from my work. And so you have to find that fine line between, okay, this is too much or this is not enough. And that all depends on, it's all personal preference. But I would really caution you to be very careful with that because it can get easy. Twitter moves so fast. So many things happen on Twitter. You might feel like you're missing out on things, but you have to figure out ways to, find that balance between this is the right amount of time for me to be on Twitter. And then lastly, if you're interested in this topic, the American Journal of Public Health is actually doing a webinar on this tomorrow. And so Dr. Heather Brandt reached out to me and said, oh, push this out there. We're doing a talk about this. And these are from individuals that are experts on this. So you definitely probably get more detailed information about using social media for your work. So feel free to, reach out to them if you're interested in checking that webinar out. And then lastly, if you have questions, comments, you can ask them now because we have some time to talk about it now, or feel free to send me an email or follow me on Twitter and we can talk that way too. Thank you all very much.
That was great, Dr. Sutton. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about all things Twitter. There's a couple questions in the chat, or a few. So I'm going to back up to where I see the first one from Hannah. Does it matter who tweeted your article, the journal versus the author? What if the author has a small following?
So it does matter. Generally, the journals are starting to become, like I said, they're starting to do this more. Generally, they're going to have more followers. Now, most of them have more followers than I do, but the newer ones, they're still like ticking up. You want the journal though to do it because it's like, okay, it's more reputable then. So if this is a journal that people in your field are aware of and they see this, then they're like, okay, if the journal is tweeting this, it was published in this journal that I tend to read, I'm going to go back and I'm gonna follow this person. But it's nothing wrong with both of you doing it. So I don't just leave it to the journal to do it. Plus, not many journals are doing it yet. It's still a small subset of them that are tweeting it. So I still tweet out my work myself. And if I have co-authors that also have Twitter, I make sure that they tweet it as well.
Yeah, excellent. So Peter has a great comment about citations and the question of cause and effect. Like, are these articles cited more because they were tweeted or tweeted more because they were cited? And that's a great interplay to think about. And I think it's cool to note that, but I'm going to move into another question about Twitter specifics from Latoya about retweeting versus a quote retweet. And can you explain a little bit more about the difference and if you should include the original, like the hashtags from the original tweet, if you're going to go with a quote retweet?
Yep. So quote, retweeting is the easiest because literally you push one button. Well, now you have to press two. So you press a button to retweet and then you press the actual retweet button. And what that does is that just shows anybody that's following you the exact tweet that you saw. That's it. It shows up on your timeline as that, but that's what it is. Now, quote tweeting, I think, is a little better because it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, here's the original tweet that I saw. And above that, it's like, here's my take on it, my thoughts about it. So let's say one of my colleagues publishes something, I might retweet it just to put that out there. And then I might quote tweet it. So then I'll have theirs and then something that I say like, congratulations, I'm so proud of you, etc. So I think it's nice to quote tweet because I think that shows a further engagement. And I think people appreciate that without taking away from the original content.
For sure. And so would you then also include the same hashtags or similar hashtags?
Actually, sometimes you can do the same, but sometimes it's better to change the hashtag up if you think there's one that might be more appropriate because then it can get a larger reach. So their hashtags that they use are already out there and people will find it that way. But let's say you add on one or two more, then that's other individuals that may see it that would not have necessarily seen the original tweet.
Excellent. Excellent. And so Peter has another question further down. How do you use filters and hashtags to get rid of junk and find relevant content? So when you're browsing Twitter yourself.
Yep. So I don't tend to use those, but there is a way that you can go through your own, through Twitter and like tell Twitter what you're interested in seeing and what you're not interested in seeing. And so that's all through your own settings. Like I said, I don't tend to do that. Now, there are some people I will mute because I don't want to see anything else they have to say at the time, but you can go and say, okay, these are some of the hashtags I'm interested in. You can build lists in Twitter. And so it's like, I will be able to add, I'll make sure you can see this content as it's coming out. So it's really intuitive in that it can do all of that. Like I say, I don't do that, but you know, you never know, even the talk tomorrow, they may go into a little bit more of how to curate to make sure you're only seeing specific things.
Yeah, that's great advice. So we have another question about personal and professional and political views, and to be on the safe side, where these last two questions are kind of similar, of how do you balance the personal and the professional, and what is your thought process in terms of wading into something that might be more controversial?
So that is such personal preference. That's what I said. This is so debatable. I tend to, I think, or probably overthink some of the more provocative topics. So even like I said, the one that I retweeted last week, I knew that it might ruffle some feathers, but I didn't care. And so when it comes down to what you're going to share, you just have to be ready for what may come that way. And that is why I go back to the beginning. It's important for you to say views are your own, because you just never know. As far as the balance, so I tend to, my Twitter is probably 50-50. I try to tweet every day. And if I don't have anything that's like great professionally happening, like I didn't get a paper accepted or rejected, or anything like that, then I'll just tweet something personal, like, oh, my workouts was really awful today, or just anything like that. That is like a quick blurb. And like I said, the integrating the personal just gives people like a holistic view of who you are. I think that's also important for individuals like myself who might be like on the job market or starting to get there, because it's like, you're not going to just get the scientist. You know, you're going to get this person who has this other kind of stuff going on. And so I think, you know, it's a balance. Everybody's balance looks different. That's what I'm saying. Some people I know, like I rarely ever see personal in there. It's mostly their professional stuff. If that's what they want, that's fine. When it comes down to stuff that's like, you know, controversial, again, that's whatever you consider controversial. I don't tend to talk too much politics up there, because political Twitter gets really interesting. I will just sit and watch it, but any kind of discussions about race or disparities or equity or social justice, I'm all there. Some other people might shy away from that. So it all just depends on your own personal preference.
All right, so do we have any other questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself or add it to the chat. We still have some time, and I'm happy to keep curating the chat for the questions. But does anyone else have any other questions of Dr. Sutton about Twitter?
I do. Thanks, Dr. Sutton, for a great talk. And you mentioned, and you showed at one point kind of the analytics for your tweets. Where is that on? How do you access that information?
Yeah, so I know how to access it on the web browser. I have not figured it out on my phone yet, but if you go into like the very top corner where you can see like your own bookmarks and trending topics, at the very bottom, they'll have like this little, it looks like this little graph thing for analytics. You literally can click on that and it will show you for the whole month, like your most engaged tweet. It will show you a chart of how frequently you're tweeting. So like right now, mine is really low compared to where it was in the past. And it'll tell you who's following, like where your new followers are. So that, it was helpful for me when I was like completely all the way in to make sure that I stayed on par. But yeah, that's where it is. Now, how to figure it out on the phone, I think that I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I need to stay away from that as much as possible anyway.
And then I have a follow-up. When you were in like your Twitterverse or like now day to day, do you use that information to figure out like what you want to tweet more of? If you're like, oh, people were really engaged with like this time I tweeted about this topic, do you then like use that information?
I've gone back to see what my most engaged tweets were. And they're, you know, for me, they're the ones like the tweet last week. It's the ones that I just go out there and I'm like, yeah, let me just put it all out there. And there, you know, people are like talking about it. It's not, you know, the publication tweets, they do okay. You know, I think people like them because they're like, bravo, we all need them. We're going to cheer you on. The grant tweets do a little bit better. But the ones that are like, because people use Twitter for news, the ones that are like current topics and your stance on them tend to do the best. That's what I've seen.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Thank you, Dr. Sutton. How do you prevent, so now that you're kind of on the other side and you don't have your dual laptops going here to be on Twitter all day, how do you prevent like the time suck that can be Twitter, right? Like to be able to balance it, and do you cap yourself like for how much time you'll spend on each day?
Good question. So at first, when I realized I was doing it too much, I decided to use my phone to cap me. And so I was like, okay, you're not going to do any more than 30 minutes of Twitter a day. The first time the phone alerted me, I pretty much almost threw it out the window. I was like, nope, that's not enough. So that gets into the behavioral part of it. I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that. So now I cut that off, but I try to be a little bit more intentional about it. So I take real lunch breaks, even if I'm just sitting here at home. And so when I'm on a lunch break, I'm probably listening to a podcast and I'm on Twitter. So I use my lunch break for that. I also tend to look at Twitter in the evening. So it's probably a 3 times a day thing for me. So it's probably in the morning and it's only like a quick scroll, probably about like 8 minutes. And during my lunch, and then a quick scroll in the evening. The evening one's probably a little bit longer. And that's only because I know that how the news works. So I'm like 3 times a day tends to work for me. I think overall, I'm on Twitter probably no more than it's probably about 30 minutes now, like actually scrolling my timeline, which for me is pretty good. But it's just setting those times and knowing that that's probably about it. The difference though, too, what you want to do, you may want to stop notifications. So I do have push notifications. So whenever someone replies to my tweets, I get a notification. And so that can also cause more time, but that also allows you to be more engaging and not like, oh, forget you, thanks a lot, I'm moving on. So it's just like so I stopped I stopped push notifications for likes, for retweets, for friend requests, like all of that. I stopped all of that because that made me go and check my phone more frequently. And so that's how I kind of limited my time on Twitter also.
That's really helpful. Thank you. The notification about the 30 minutes that I've exceeded my limit, really, like I'm all set with that. I'm gonna have to find.
I can't. I'm grown. I don't want anybody telling me that. So yeah.
I would definitely see the notification and ignore it on principle, which I don't know what that means, but well, thank you guys so much for coming and engaging. This has been a lively discussion, and I'm so excited for it to be the kickoff to our How To Talks by Postdocs series. If you have additional questions, I'm sure that Dr. Sutton would be happy to talk with you about it. Find her on Twitter, follow her, do all of the great things. I just posted a quick link in the chat for an evaluation of this talk. Dr. Sutton is in a competition to win the VCU Science Communication Award, which comes with a cash prize and a fantastic 3D printed trophy. So these evaluations go into that. So take a moment and sing her praises if you can. And if you're interested in learning more about the How To Talks by Postdocs, we have 3 more talks every Monday in October, and their topics can be found at this website. Up next week, we have Mentoring in STEM, How to Develop and Support Your Research Mentee by Dr. Jamel Simmons. And he's a biomedical engineering and is great. He's an Aracta fellow as well. So it'll be a really interesting talk. We hope you guys can come back and hear from Dr. Simmons. Thanks so much.
Thank you all.